how much pleasure did you take in the Celtics losing to the Heat, failing to clinch a real playoff spot, although the Heat were able to do it?
Right. Okay.
Go ahead.
Let's start here again. Sweet. I mean, I think it was a really interesting game. I think you saw the fact that the Celtics clearly do miss Robert Williams, which, no one thought they wouldn't. He's been such an impactful player on defense so far this season, but it probably said more about the Heat to me. I just thought this was a really resilient win for them. This is a team that, really had gone through the ringer the last 2 weeks between the very animated sideline argument with Jimmy Butler, people kind of mocking and knocking Heat culture the past couple weeks, the 4-game losing streak. They needed a win like this, even though they were, coming into the night sitting atop the Eastern Conference. And the fact, not only was it that they beat the Celtics, but just the fact that their starting lineup performed so well. When you look at the on-off numbers for Butler, for Lowry, for Max Strus, that was the unit that really came through for them last night. And obviously, the importance of your best 5-6 players is only magnified in the playoffs. So I think for them, that was such a huge win just to kind of get back on track and really get their confidence back.
Suns already clinched the top seed.
Yeah.
Question, though. Jokic,
Yes.
He's the favorite for MVP right now, right? Minus 155. He put up 37 points, 13 rebounds, 9 assists, 70.75 DK fantasy points.
Yeah.
Who's got it better than him right now? Nobody.
I don't Garion, are you concerned at all, or how concerned should people be with voter fatigue here with this guy when it comes to MVP voting? Because that's a thing.
Yeah, no, definitely. But I do think the interesting part of this is that there could be voter fatigue for several parties. I think Giannis Antetokounmpo is also, someone suffering from voter fatigue right now. Under most circumstances, I think he's been kind of viewed as the far and away number 3 option in this MVP race because Joel Embiid is sort of that fresh blood. This is the first time Embiid's really had an MVP run, a legitimate MVP run. So Jokic probably isn't the only guy suffering from that, but we've kind of seen that narrative turn around a little bit the past 3-4 weeks. I know he literally yesterday started the day at plus money to win the MVP on the DK Sportsbook, and by the end of the day was, I think, minus 125 to take home the award. So it seems like between just maybe some betting market stuff and the fact that you've got guys like Tim Bontemps going out there and, talking to a lot of the actual voters for this award and doing his straw polls. And the tide is really starting to turn for Jokic. And it's performances like we saw last night, which it's funny when you read off a stat line like that, and I don't even blink just because that's almost become the absolute norm for someone like Nikola Jokic. And, then factoring in just the fact that he hasn't had Jamal Murray, he hasn't had Michael Porter Jr. all season long. The staggering difference between the Nuggets' success when he's on the court versus when he's off the court. I think it's a pretty clear-cut case that Jokic should be the MVP this season. I wouldn't worry too much about voter fatigue, but I don't think he's going to win a third. Let's put it that way next year. So, especially if he takes this one home this year.
Okay, well, you mentioned Giannis. He is the highest priced player on the board. Talking DFS tonight, we got a 5-game slate. He's 11-8. So is that who you are paying up for in DFS, or who's your guy tonight that you're just going to spend a boatload of cash on?
Yeah, I think there's a couple names you have to like above 10K. I think someone like Darius Garland is kind of in an interesting spot just out of, sheer desperation for the Cavaliers. This is someone who's been playing essentially 42 minutes a night their last 10 games because every single one of his teammates just is dropping like a fly due to injuries. So Garland, just from a volume perspective, I think is in a really interesting spot in an up-tempo matchup against the Hawks. Obviously, on a slate where Kevin Durant is playing, you always have to at least consider Kevin Durant, but I would say Giannis has to be your number 1 target tonight. He's $11,800. It's not going to be easy to fit in pieces around him. I understand that, but we've kind of gotten to a point with Giannis where game script is just so important with him and the Bucks in general. And when they play a good team, you're almost locked into having to play Giannis. The last 8 times he's been forced to play 35 minutes, which isn't even really that high a number considering what some of the star players in this league are averaging so far this season. But 35 minutes, the last 8 times he's done that, Giannis is averaging 71.1 DraftKings points per game. And that includes that 75 DraftKings point performance he had on Tuesday against the Philadelphia 76ers in a very similar spot to what this game should look like tonight against Brooklyn. So if you're in a situation where you think Giannis is going to have to play serious minutes and meaningful minutes in the fourth quarter, he's just going to probably score 75 DraftKings points.
All right, Garion, can't pay up for everyone, so where are you looking for some value?
Yeah, there's a couple nice places. I mentioned the Cavaliers virtually having no members of their rotation left. I think Lamar Stevens is an interesting guy who's got multi-position eligibility. He's actually seen his price point drop from last night's slate, $200. He's down to $3,500, which I find surprising, just considering he's gone for at least 20 DraftKings points in 5 of his last 6 games. He literally scored 16 points in 26 minutes last night. Like, I think his role is pretty secure. He's not a huge ceiling guy, but I think his floor is really, really nice and really, really reliable. Malik Monk, just with no LeBron James, likely no Anthony Davis once again. I mean, Russell Westbrook's going to be the number 1 option for the Lakers tonight, but Monk was clearly the number 2 option in that game they had against the Mavericks on Tuesday. It turned out to be a blowout, so I'm not quite sure how many minutes Monk would have ended up playing, but got over 32 minutes in that contest, hoisted up 10 3-pointers. So I think his ceiling is pretty set in stone. And then probably my favorite value play on this slate is Killian Hayes of the Detroit Pistons, who's, not a lot of notoriety in his rookie season based on some injuries. Hasn't really been doing too much and kind of in the shadow now of Cade Cunningham in his sophomore season. But Hayes has been playing some of the best basketball of his career the past 2-3 weeks. He's gone over 27 DraftKings points in 6 of his last 8 games. He's gone over 30 DraftKings points in 3 of his last 4 games. And just more regularly playing like 32, 33, 35 minutes in these Pistons contests. And I think the one piece of injury news to consider, not that I think Hayes even needs injury news to be viable on this slate, but Corey Joseph is questionable with a back issue. I don't really think there's a reason that the veteran Corey Joseph is going to have to play in this game for the 20-win Pistons in late March. I think he probably sits tonight, and that just opens up even more opportunity for Hayes. He'll probably get into the starting lineup, and maybe he sees those minutes get over 35 tonight.
All right, Slater per pick. We'll get you out of here with this. Your favorite bet on the board tonight is what?
I'm going to go with the Hawks -6. They've just been playing some really good basketball, specifically at home as of late. They are 13-6 ATS. They're past 19 home games. Across their last 10 games overall, they have the 9th best net rating in all of basketball, while the Cavaliers, again, you feel for them. The fact they are just so injured. They lost Evan Mobley. He's going to be out for this game and their next game. They are 0-6 ATS in their last 6 games. They are just not playing well. They seemingly cannot score the basketball. And as I mentioned, Darius Garland's already playing 42 minutes a game. So I don't know what button you press if you're JB Bickerstaff. It's not like you can play him more. So they're just in a situation where they're kind of at a loss right now, and I think the Hawks are going to be able to take advantage.